Is this image real?
This isn't real.
What is real?
Well, there are a couple of obvious problems with it. There's no date and timestamp, and before you say the CCTV of the alleged shooter doesn't have a date and timestamp either, well, actually it does. Have a look at the top left corner. The other problem is that there's no one else in the image, which also makes verification more difficult. According to Newsweek, quote, the conservative influencer Candace Owens released an image purporting to show the alleged murderer at the outlet, that's Dairy Queen, during an episode of her podcast. Newsweek has contacted the Orem Police Department and Dairy Queen for comment and confirmation. Well, how do you establish the authenticity of something? Well, that is exactly what Neo needed to know from Morpheus.
How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see.
How do you establish the authenticity of something? Isn't reality simply our perception of it? Or is reality beyond what we see, beyond what we know?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. So how do you establish the authenticity of something? Well, it requires effort. That should be the first thing to note. You have to go to some trouble to verify things, and that takes time. And it's not always easy. You've sometimes got to go to various people and ask questions, and then look at the information you have and make a judgment based on logic and reason. Back to Newsweek, the image has not been verified by law enforcement or any official entity. Newsweek has not independently verified the image. Now, it seems even though Dairy Queen was approached by Newsweek, they weren't even able to confirm its authenticity either, unless they are either simply not allowed to or just haven't responded. Newsweek says, if the image is legitimate, this would mean that Robinson was at the Dairy Queen more than 6 hours after the shooting. Now, that just doesn't make any sense. Criminals who commit crimes, especially high-profile crimes, tend to want to lie low afterwards. Think about Brian Laundrie in the Gabby Petito case. Think about Chris Watts, Scott Peterson, and the murderer of Meredith Kercher. Think about Caitlin Armstrong. And how about we look for some intertextual elements in the script? So Robinson says, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home. Now, also remember, Robinson texted, I am stuck in Orem, and this is it. He says, for a little while longer. Then he also says, shouldn't be long until I can come home. Now, would you say that if you're going to spend 6 more hours in situ? I don't think so. This suggests, if we accept these texts as legit, that the Dairy Queen image is bogus. Side by side, the physique of the person in the image also appears stronger than the skinnier, paler Robinson pictured in his room. The tone of the cap and the shape of his shoes also don't look right in the Dairy Queen image. Now, what happens if you say, guys, this is a legitimate image? Well, suddenly you've got the exclusive rights over it. Suddenly you've got a story nobody else does at a time when there's an incredible thirst, an incredible demand for information, but no new information coming out. So you can literally suddenly out of thin air produce exactly what everybody wants, and you've got exclusivity over it. But again, the question is it real?
Real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
But are these interpretations really reality? Now, although there's a tiny chance that Dairy Queen may come out and verify the image, I think it's safe to say at this stage, I mean, how long has that image been out there? I think it's safe to say at this stage that the image is fake. And it appears someone has profited handsomely from using AI to pull the wool over our eyes. And what that means is someone has outsmarted you. Someone has known what you want, known what you're going to infer, and used it against you at your own expense, wasted your time and attention in order to make money out of it. Now, the American philosopher and neuroscientist Sam Harris has also added his voice to the unraveling blitzkrieg, the social media blitzkrieg surrounding Charlie Kirk. In a recent post on Substack, Harris writes the following, and I'll put a link to this in the description. Whatever the killer's motives, he dropped a match onto an information landscape that was ready to burn. I've compared social media to a digital sewer, but nothing captures the ludicrous insults, moral injuries, and delusions. By the way, this Dairy Queen image is another thing catering to this just widespread delusion that millions of us avidly produce and consume online. In other words, we are both the producers and the consumers of this digital sewer. If the medium is the message, Harris writes, the message is mass psychosis, and it will send us careening from one political emergency to the next. Now, this is why this image is important. If you're able to discern the reality of this image, then you're going to be better at dealing with hoaxes in the future. If you're not, you're going to be worse at doing that. And also, the people that are fooling you are going to get better, more brazen, and more confident in their little trickster efforts, right? Now, the fact that some of the most deranging and divisive content is being created or amplified by foreign adversaries, and that we have literally built and monetized their capacity to do this, beggars belief. We are poisoning ourselves and inviting others to poison us. And this is why we've got to stop that process. That's why when you think critically on this particular point, what you're doing is you're stopping that poison from spreading. You basically giving yourself a kind of immunity from this. Isn't that something that you would want? You're putting a guard around your mind. Now, I think I've got a simpler, though not simplistic, and a more elegant, though not reductionist explanation for what is happening and what we are doing. We are just becoming exceedingly clever at lying to ourselves, right? If this image is fake and you've got people spreading it, then what it really is people lying to each other. And why is it that some of us can't tell the difference between truth and lies, between facts and fiction, between conspiracies and the rest? So if we are becoming exceedingly clever at lying to ourselves, well, it's not just that. Liars are being rewarded handsomely. You know, the more millions they deceive, the greater the king's ransom. According to Harris, no sane person, left or right, supports political assassination or feels anything but horror over it. And then he refers to the shooter as a Utah native who grew up hunting with his Republican parents. We don't know yet why he did what he did, but there is a very good chance that he represents no cause beyond his own mental illness. I think what he's leaving out there is the fact that he changed his political affiliation from what it originally was. Now, although I agree that the internet, gaming, and the algorithm all played their parts in the radicalization here, it's also something I dealt with in a book I wrote called Slaughter, dealing with the Boston bombings. They were also radicalized online, but also self-radicalized. I'm not sure if we can conflate the mass psychosis online with the mass psychosis offline. Also, don't think you can just say that mental illness is the same as criminal psychology. I mean, I think there can be an overlap, and a criminal may have signs or symptoms of mental illness, but I don't think you can dismiss a criminal as merely mentally ill. I do agree that the internet, gaming, and the algorithm all play their part in the radicalization here, and this is specific to young, college-aged men, males. It's not something that really affects females. And I'm not sure if we can conflate the mass psychosis online with the mass psychosis offline, right? I think it's more complicated than that. In this case, I think what was going on offline is also a factor. Robinson's situation vis-a-vis his transitioning roommate, for example, I think that played a huge role here. But it's also who his roommate was. That's an area we haven't gone into whatsoever. Now, one could argue that his roommate influenced him more than social media, except that potentially social media infected his roommate more, or infected his roommate to begin with, and thus the infection spread to him. Harris astutely observes, quote, social media amplifies extreme views as though they were representative of most Americans, and many of us are losing our sense of what other people are really like. Think about those words in regards to this case. Many of us are losing our sense of what other people are really like. what is Tyler Robinson really like? And for some people who don't know or don't like or just don't have any idea of Charlie Kirk, do they know what he was really like? Or the roommate? And do people have the time to kind of, instead of projecting, do they have the time, the capacity, the mental resources to put themselves in someone else's shoes? I guess the sensitivity in a sense. And reality is in a way about being sensitive to subtlety. I don't mean that in a sense of rationalizing or being sympathetic, simply being able to fine-tune yourself to nuances and a lot of detailed information, which is, after all, what makes up another person. Harris also writes, many seem completely unaware that their hold on reality is being steadily undermined. In other words, he's saying, as a result of social media, we don't even know what is real anymore. But again, there are also other things that can undermine our reality besides and often in concert with our online dedication to fictions and fantasies. Such as, you might ask, well, such as drugs and alcohol. And so the question is, are they a factor here as well? Is it computer games, furry fandom, but also drugs and alcohol? Also the algorithm. All of these things working at an accelerated rate in a young person's heart and mind. Now, before I finish up on my analysis here, I think Harris ought to be allowed to round off his original point. He writes, many seem completely unaware that their hold on reality is being steadily undermined by what they are seeing online. What is undermining their hold on reality? What they are seeing online. And in another way, what they are not experiencing in the real world. That lack of experience in the real world means you're being limited in your anchoring, right? He goes on to say, and that the livelihoods of countless influencers depend on our continuing to gaze and howl into the digital abyss. Very well written. Literally, the livelihoods of losers and liars, this is me talking, the livelihoods of losers and liars are dependent on our failure to think critically, even to think at all. I feel there are thousands out there that want me to tell them whether the shooter is carrying a rifle or not, and whether this image is authentic or not. And while I can do that in the next video, I can answer that question, the more important thing I feel isn't to be told what to think, but to start thinking for yourself, and also to know how to do that. And just to find yourself doing that, to be asked to do that and to try to do that. What Newsweek did here is the proper way to verify a source. You try to find two credible sources to confirm or verify something. That is the standard set and followed by investigative journalists and scientists.
It's basic science.
Do you know how scientists, when they come up with a new idea, how they verify it? Well, they have it peer-reviewed, which means they publish it and they have other people basically look at it and examine it and test it and see if there are any flaws to it. It doesn't just originate, and by the fact that it exists, it is regarded as credible. And so if we apply that to this case, the original source, Dairy Queen, and a second source that claims to have some authority over the situation, what do they say? Another way to deal with a situation where you're not sure if it's true or not is to engage and to listen to the counter-narrative and evaluate it. Now, what do you think the standard is for content creators on social media in terms of information? You know what? They don't particularly care whether something is authentic or not. They care that it will be popular and will make them cheddar. That's their standard. Is that true or not? And if it is true, is that a high enough standard for you? Are you happy? Are you happy with that standard? Also, just in general, if you want to be a better thinker and a happier person, I also suggest following Harris's advice. Get off social media. That's also what the governor said. Read good books and real journalism. Social media, ironically enough, is actually very antisocial. So go out and get some exercise, live a little, get yourself into nature and socialize and speak face to face with actual people in the real world. Find your reality out of your own experience, not someone else, not someone you barely know. Find your reality, your truth in your own terms, not through someone else's agenda to milk the situation. What is the greatest but also the most monstrous and deformed cash cow in human history? And I'm going to leave this discussion, I'm going to leave this topic with this image on screen. What is the most monstrous and deformed cash cow in human history? Social media. This is happening right now. This is us. This is our world. And how does the cash cow work? Well, content creators generate profit by leveraging large audiences. They're basically playing with your attention. And unless we as a society, as a species, as a collective, as a community, don't take hands in the real world and become more self-aware and self-determiners, we are destined, we are doomed to be, we are fated to be dependent, enslaved, subjected, controlled, unfree, oppressed, repressed, held captive, held back, exploited, overpowered, yoked to the online behemoth that with every mindless click and keystroke, we give more power and agency. Stop doing it. Please stop doing it. And how you start stopping is by you start thinking critically. Start thinking for yourself. Start having a higher standard in how you verify information. Does that make sense? If this analysis has really resonated with you, please show your appreciation by hitting the thanks button. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.